The other memorable game my senior year really was the Hoquiam game. Something about the Hoquiam games, I guess, that become memorable. But in this particular one, it was a game that we played over there. So it was the first of the two games. And we went into it, and I think as a rule, Coach Dixon would not make it too big a deal. He felt like we were already pretty stoked about the game and pumped up. And I remember we had, I want to say, a 10 or a 12 point lead in the second quarter. And by halftime, it was down to 2, so we had lost the lead. And typically, if that was the case, he would get on us at halftime. I mean, Dixon wasn't a big yeller, didn't really shout, but he had a look, and that look meant, take me seriously, and you didn't really want to get the look, and you didn't want him speaking to you in a way that, you knew you screwed up. But I remember thinking, he didn't really seem upset that we had lost the lead, and we went on to lose the game, and that kind of stuck with me. So the next day at practice, as was the case of many times, we would kind of gather together and he'd talk about the game, and I remember very distinctly he said, "Does anybody else have anything to say?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." Not sure what made me raise my hand and think that I needed to contribute, but nevertheless, I brought up the subject that I thought that he hadn't really, got on us after we had lost the lead, and typically he had, and so I just kind of felt that was different. And he listened and said, "Okay, I hear you." And so 2 days later, we played Elma at home, and the same pattern happened where we had a lead, and the next thing you know, I think they actually hit a shot right at the end of the half, and we were down 1, I want to say. And we went into the locker room, and I can't say that I knew he was going to, let us have it, but he did. Again, I don't know that he yelled, but he was pretty clear that he was not happy that we had lost the lead. And what I do remember is he said, "We're going to go out in the second half, and we're going to play man-to-man, full court the entire second half, and I don't care who gets tired. I don't care if you're hurting," which I felt like the whole halftime talk was a reference to me because of what I had said. But also, when he talked about whether you're hurting, is I had a giant blister underneath a callus on my foot. And we had cut it open, and he had made this big donut contraption and pad, and so it wasn't like I wasn't in some pain anyway. But we did go out, we played, full court the whole second half, turned around, won the game. But I always can remember, me opening my big mouth and calling him out for not getting on us, and then he did. So that was one of my memories. The other thing about Dixon is I always thought he had a way of knowing how to talk to each player. So, as someone who hadn't really played that many years and relatively inexperienced, he didn't really get on me that much. I mean, once in a while, yes, but not, he clearly got on, like I remember he got on Lee Ferris a little bit more than he did, I felt like, some of the other players, but Lee had been around a long time. I mean, Lee was pretty experienced, his dad was a coach, I think he knew he could handle it. I remember him, I don't know, he was teasing or kind of getting on Macaulay's case because Mark was a really good player who was not shooting very well, and I think he even asked him, did he need glasses? And, he did it as a joke, but it was kind of like, I remember he said, we were doing some stretches and the score clock was on in the gym, and I think he asked Mark if he could read it. I don't know if it was coincidental, but I think it was the next game or the game after that Mark had his best game of the year. He got 29 points, so I always thought that was kind of interesting. But in general, I thought that Dixon knew what he could say to people. I remember one time he was trying to get me to change the way I played defense. I really didn't have great fundamentals. I did have good timing, and so a lot of times I just played behind guys and just said, I'm going to go up and try and block a shot. And I remember we were playing somebody, I'm not even sure who it was, and they had a bigger guy, and he said, "I want you to front him. I want you to get around and front the guy so they can't throw the ball into him." And I wasn't doing a very good job of it. And I remember he came out, he was probably, I don't know, he wasn't very tall, but he came out and he was trying to show me how to play the post. And at some point, I think he just got frustrated and just went, fine, fine. What are you going to do if you don't front him? What are you going to do? And I said, well, I'm just going to wait for him to catch the ball and I'm going to block it. And he said, well, as he walked off the court, he goes, that better happen. And I don't remember exactly what happened in the game, but I like to think that I blocked a couple of shots and then the guy whoever I was guarding wasn't that aggressive. I did have a game, in that same Elma game, I do remember one play that I had, and because it actually got written up in the paper. A player drove down the right side of the lane, and it wasn't my guy. I was on the weak side. And as he drove, I came over and went up to block his shot, and because of the angle, I was trailing him, and I blocked it against the backboard, and it went out almost to half court. And it just was lucky. I mean, I caught it just right, and so the momentum just swatted it against the backboard, and it went out. And like I said, it got written up in the paper. So I've always kind of remembered that one as a memorable play on my part. The other thing about Dixon, though, like I said, he knew what to say and what not to say. And so one of the things that I can really remember was there was a time before practice one day, and I have no idea what I was doing, but he walked up to me and he said, you seem like something's bothering you. Now, I have no idea if that's the case, but that's what he said. And I remember thinking, well, I can just say no. So and maybe this was the truth, I just don't remember. But I remember telling him, I'm kind of, I get tired of playing against guys that are either much taller than me or just outweigh me. I was 6'3" and 185 pounds. And so we chatted about that for a minute. And I remember thinking over the years that he could have said to me, you have to work harder, or you're going to work on that fronting technique that I tried to teach you and you didn't understand. But he didn't say any of that. He listened to what I had to say, and then he looked at me and he said, Tom, it's not how tall you are, it's not how much you weigh, it's how big you are right here. And he tapped his chest, right? Tapped his heart. And of course that got me all pumped up. And then I started to walk away, and then what he did next, though, is what really got me going. Is as I walked away, he goes, and Tom, I said, yeah, coach. And he said, right here, you're all league, first team. And of course, I kind of took that into the next few games, and I think I played much better. I do know against Hoquiam, I think I had 17 or 18 rebounds, and we won that game when they came back over to play for us, against us at our place. So anyway, those are some of the things I remember about Dixon. I later got to know him even better when he was helping Leonard Barnes coach at Grace Harbor College, and I did scouting for them and then coached their team in the summer. So I did a lot of that, and I remember that. And then, we just kept in touch, and we used to see each other different times, whether the state tournament, whatever. But I even got into a habit. I would call him a lot of times on my way home from the Seattle Times. I mean, I had 25 minutes to kill, and I would call him up and ask how he's doing. And sometimes he would describe his ailments to me or something. But he'd always go, it's tough getting old, Tom, but it beats the alternative. And he was just a great guy, and always remember him. And we even named, not the dog we have now, obviously, but the dog before this was Dixon. And we always named our dogs related to basketball. And so, I don't know, we said, what about Dixon? And I made Peyton, we called him, and I made Peyton ask him if it was okay to name the dog after him. And in his usual way, with his dry wit, he asked and made her answer a few questions about the dog's personality, but in the end he said, yeah, I'd be honored to have the dog named after me. So that's kind of a lot of what I remember about Dixon. Tremendous guy, and just a big influence in my life. So that's it.